Hey everybody, SPAZ here, and welcome to another episode of But Is It Power Pop? I've got a lot of great stuff to show you, so I'm just going to dig right into it, and I'm trying to keep it short and sweet. Nick Lowe right here. This was two singles that they combined on one EP, Trombone and Love Starvation singles, recorded with Lowe Straitjackets. This is fantastic. Is it power pop? It's not power pop. It's modern Nick Lowe, which is still absolutely wonderful. He's gone through different phases of his career. A lot of people just remember him from 40 years ago, but he still makes great records. And Trombone especially is one of my favorite, most recent Nick Lowe releases. So you should definitely check out anything and everything by Nick Lowe. But speaking of Nick Lowe, everybody knows his big hit, Cruel to Be Kind. Well, he wrote that with a gentleman by the name of Ian Gomm. And Ian Gomm has released albums over the years. The first three albums are really the ones I'm going to focus on right now because they're the ones closest to what I think that people would consider quote-unquote power pop. But, he's a British singer-songwriter. He was in Brinsley Schwarz alongside Nick Lowe. This has his big hit single called Hold On. And everybody knows that song is a great song. Then, of course, What a Blow came out. This is a different cover than the U.S., but luckily what they did on this import version is they put all the tracks that were on both the US and the UK versions of the album, and that's a great album as well. And then finally Village Voice, never released in the US, but just as good as the other two albums. Ian Gomm, definitely an artist that you will love if you love Nick Lowe and artists that operate just outside the power pop genre. And now, Hummingbird Heart is the brand new album from Scott Gagner. Great pop, great songwriter, very well produced, great vocals, great melodies. If you like the modern stuff, like let's say anyone from Bye Bye Blackbirds to Danny Wilkerson, things like that, this is all along those lines. And this is a brand new album. Highly recommended. Now, he has other albums too. So if you like the new Scott Gagner album, that's Gagner. If you like the new Scott Gagner, then you're definitely going to like his back catalog. Great singer-songwriter. Definitely check him out. Now, many times I talk about Danny Wilkerson. I talk about the Penguins. I talk about Lanny Flowers. Well, have I ever talked about the E.P.s before? This is, first off, you think extended play. Then you realize that, that's a painting that they licensed that Stuart Sutcliffe drew. And that painting is called Elvis Presley. Well, then you'd think, maybe the E.P.s is Elvis Presley. No, the E.P.s actually stands for Ex-Penguins. So you'll see Danny Wilkerson, Lanny Flowers, Alan Pecci. This is just a great collection of songs. In fact, when I saw Danny Wilkerson live recently, he performed a song off of this disc. So the E.P.s is definitely going to be something you're going to want to track down. The album is called Chuck. I never asked him why they named the album that. But anyway, speaking of more modern stuff, Big Stir Records releases a lot of pop. They release a lot of digital singles. Every week you're going to be able to, for $1, download an A and B side by an artist. Maybe an artist that has put out an album on the label. Maybe they haven't put out an album on the label. But every week there's a new single to download over at Big Stir. It's the Big Stir Digital Single Series. Well, they've released 3 compilations featuring all the singles. There's the first one. There's the second one. And number 3 I do not have, but that is now available so you can check it out. And look at the amount of songs. It's got the A's and the B sides. So you're going to find people like the Brother Steve and the Armoise and Lanny Flowers and Sundial Symphony and all the bands that have released singles. The digital singles are now available on CD, volumes 1, 2. First Wave, Second Wave, and Third Wave is the one that came out that I don't have. Definitely check that out. If you are a fan of pop music, guitar pop from Florida, the Tomboys released a collection. You can get this online only, and all you have to basically pay is shipping. It's a CDR, which I normally don't advertise, but it's such a good deal. But they're a Florida power pop band. Raul from the Mavericks was in this band. And this is a collection of studio tracks by them. And definitely check it out online. I think it's the tomboysmusic.com. And I believe, like I said, I think you only have to pay for shipping. Now, is it power pop? It's not really power pop. It's closer to, like, let's say, the Producers. You know, it's more of a commercial guitar pop. Some of it sounds kind of maybe leaning towards AOR, but a lot of great songs, and you're definitely going to want to check that out. Anybody remember D.L. Byron, This Day and Age? This album, I think, came out in 1980. And Listen to the Heartbeat is the big song that came off of this. Everybody loves it. Is it power pop? Yeah, it's kind of rock and roll power pop, because power pop, to me, the heart of power pop, and no Huey Lewis puns here, but the heart of power pop has always been rock and roll, just straight ahead rock and roll. And this is a lot of that. I compare it more to maybe Robert Johnson, Close Personal Friend album, or even Paul Warren and Explorer, people like that, where it's, he's singer-songwriter playing just great rock music, and it just happens to be very melodic and kind of power pop. So definitely, if you can track the D.L. Byron down, check that out. Here's another current favorite, longtime favorite, and current favorite, Duncan Reid. Now, Duncan Reid used to be in a band called The Boys. He's a British singer-songwriter. And if anybody remembers The Boys, I'll show their CDs to you in just a second. If anybody remembers them, just they had that punk edge, but boy, their music, again, reached back to the 50s and 60s, or their influences did. And so they had a lot of great songs. They were less Beatles influenced and more, like I said, 50s, 60s influenced. So they really had just pure, honest rock and roll at their core. Duncan himself, who was known as Kid Reid in the Boys, Duncan has taken that and added just much more melodic flair to it, melodic flavor. And yeah, he's definitely power pop. In fact, this was his debut album. That is the second album. And this is actually my favorite Duncan Reid album so far. He's been getting better and better with each release. And if anybody remembers The Boys, he was a member of that band way back then. More influence, like I said, 50s, 60s. I'd say maybe even more Ramones influences than Beatles. But, Beatles are always there. You know that. This was a album from the 90s that they did, an acoustic album. And there's a single there. And by the time this album came out, Duncan had left the band already. He was recording his solo stuff. But there are definitely some great Boys albums to track down. International Pop Overthrow. That's right. This is the new compilation. There's like 800 songs here. Well, it's not really 800 songs, but it's 3 CDs. So if you haven't been able to attend any of the IPO festival shows this year, you can order it because it's available through Omnivore Records. So if you want to hear just a bunch of modern power pop bands and, get a taste of what's going on out there. Some of these bands have put out albums, some of them haven't, but it's all tasty, sweet, and good to eat. That's right. And there are other International Pop Overthrow compilations out there that you're probably going to want to track down. And I'm not going to recommend one and say one's better than the other, because there's so many songs on every collection. Like I said, so many songs in every collection that, it's really up to you. And, you're going to go pick your favorites, which are probably going to be different than mine. And next time I listen to it, I'm probably going to pick another batch of favorites that I really didn't connect with the first listen. And that's always a great, great thing to do when you're listening to compilations. Always keep your mind open. And up next, this is not power pop. It's more punky and edgy and alternative. But boy, it's powerful and it's pop. So I'd say if you like your power pop, super edgy, punk flavored, Bob Mould, of course, he's been doing this for years, ever since his days with Husker Du. Then, of course, Sugar, and then solo. I think this is his best album in years. So definitely check that out, Sunshine Rock. Anybody remember the band SAR? Or does anybody like that band, The Brother Steve? I just mentioned them. They're on Big Stir Records. No CD yet. Well, here is a solo album from the lead singer, Jeff Whalen. And boy, this thing is jam-packed. It's like bubblegum, power pop, definitely just one of those albums that you really need to own because every song is just filled with great hooks. So definitely check that out because that is a fab album. Not sure if I talked about this before. Harmony in My Head. This collection is absolutely fabulous. It's, as you can tell there, it's British new wave and power pop from late 70s, early 80s. You're going to find bands on there that people might consider punk, that people might consider post-punk or new wave or whatever, but it's just all great melodic, hook-filled music that will satisfy any power pop fan. Yeah, some of it's indie, maybe a band that only had one single out at one time, but just like anything else, listen to it once, you go, oh, that's pretty good. Listen to it twice, it just grabs a hold of you and never lets go. So this is one of those compilations. You can pause your screen right there and take a look at all the bands that are on there. Just a great collection. Now this one here is not necessarily power pop. Now Peter Himmelman is known now for being a folk singer. I guess you could say that, or Americana. He's also known for being Bob Dylan's son-in-law. But back when he first started musically, he was in a band called Susssman Lawrence. And this 2-CD set on Deep Shag Records collects all of Susssman Lawrence's recordings. Their first album and their second album. Their second album was a 2-record set called Pop City, and it just covered everything. Now, you're going to be closer to Elvis Costello or closer to New Wave, but there are some great power pop moments on here. A lot of great songs, just tons of great hooks, and, you know, especially the Pop City album, you're going to wonder, how come I've never heard of that album before? When I stumbled across it, it was maybe a year or two old, and I'd never even heard of the band before, but I thought, an album called Pop City? Hell yeah, I'm going to buy that. Took it home, and it's just all over the map. They just tried so many different things, and I'm glad to say they tried them successfully. So anyway, you're probably going to find this somewhere under Peter Himmelman, but it's the Susssman Lawrence, or the complete Susssman Lawrence recordings, and definitely worth spending some time with. Commonly known as New Wave because of her hit Johnny Are You Queer, Josie Cotton. This is pretty much 50s and 60s inspired power pop. If you hear Systematic Way or He Can Be the One or Johnny Are You Queer, those are definitely great melodic guitar-fueled songs. Now, a lot of people may have considered her jokey, you know, like Julie Brown or something, but she was far from that. Very talented, great vocalist. If you love the jam side of mod, then you're going to love the Chords. This is their So Far Away album. This is actually their only album. They split up before they can make a second. This has a bunch of bonus tracks. This is on the Captain Mod label. And they also had the singles collection as well. And this features pretty much the same tracks, or close to the same tracks. So Far Away actually features more, I believe. There's also a brand new, I think it's 3 or 4 CD set that brings together every Chords release, including unreleased demos and live and all that kind of stuff. I don't own that yet, so I can't show it to you. But anyway, that is it for this episode of But Is It Power Pop? I thought I'd just kind of run through those real fast. I know that's a lot to go through, but I will list all the bands I speak about in the description below. But until the next time we meet, right here on But Is It Power Pop, smell you later!